Hi, everyone, and welcome in to the Ladies' Lunch Break. I am your host, Crystal Fry, a woman's best friend. Today, I am asking a very important question. Our topic for today, what are you communicating? I want to thank everyone who is joining us live, and for those of you who are watching in the replay, we are streaming both on Facebook and over on YouTube, so welcome in and thank you for joining. Today's question, today's topic, I'm asking you the question, what are you communicating? And before we really get into the question and answering it, I want to remind you that when we talk about communication, it's not just your words, right? We are always communicating, whether it is where we're actually speaking or whether we're, writing, text, email, any of those kind of things. Those are usually the ways we think about, our communication. But we also communicate in a lot of different ways, not just words, but our facial expressions, right? Our body language, our reactions or lack thereof. All of those things are ways that we communicate, either consciously or unconsciously, loudly or quietly. They are all ways that we communicate. And so when I ask the question, what are you communicating? I want you to take all of those things into consideration as you are pondering your answer to that question. And I also want to remind you to think about the message that you're wanting other people to receive. What is the message that you want people to get when you're communicating with them? And again, this is not like a broad, one answer kind of question, but as you're thinking about your communication with yourself, with others, what is it that you want other people to see? What's the message you want them to receive? Are they receiving it the way that you intended? That's something else. We oftentimes think, oh, well, this is what I said. Oh, well, but that's not what I heard. Have you ever been in that situation? I certainly have. Well, that's not what I meant, but that's what you said. So as you're thinking about your communication and you're taking into consideration this question here today, what are you communicating? I want you to think about that and think about whether or not you find yourself in confusion, or maybe other people find themselves in confusion about the messages that you are putting out. Excuse me. So in that, I want to just take a second and remind all of us that communication is critical, right? It's critical to our survival. Think about that. If you're not able to communicate that you're choking, okay, that's just a really, really great, easy one as we're talking about actual life and death survival. If you're not able to communicate that you're choking, either, you can't speak because you're choking. If you're not able to put your hands up, signal for help in some way, what happens? You choke and you may not survive that. So communication is one, it's essential for our survival. That is a drastic example of being able to communicate when you're choking. But when you think about it, it's critical to our success as well. So not only our survival in the forms of life and death, but as you're looking at what kind of life are you trying to build? What does success look like for you? If you can't communicate what success looks like for you, it's going to be difficult for you to communicate it outwardly and take the steps that are necessary in order to achieve it. So it's critical for our survival. It's critical for our success. Communication is the key to transforming your life. Now, you may be sitting here saying, Crystal, I don't need to transform my life. You may be right. But have you already transformed your life? Are you already in that place? I guarantee you communication had everything to do with it, because that is how you are putting that out there. You're putting it out there not only for yourself. That's exactly right. Your words matter. And so today we're asking the question, what are you communicating? And not only with your words, but in your body language, in your facial expressions, in your responses or lack thereof. Again, because remember, not responding to something is still a response. So bear that in mind as we kind of walk through this. So in looking at what are you communicating? I want you to examine communication in three very important areas of your life. communication with yourself, communication with those around you, communication with the universe. I'll get into that one in just a minute, so stay with me. So let's start with you. What are you communicating to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? How do you speak to yourself? Are you using affirmations? What does your self-talk look like? Are you saying nice things to yourself? Are you encouraging yourself? Are you giving yourself praise for a job well done? Are you, telling yourself that you can do it? Or are you picking yourself apart? Are you beating yourself up? Do you tell yourself that you can't? Whatever, fill in the blank. Self, I can't, fill in the blank. Whatever you want to put in there. Because that's usually the way it comes for us, right? Oh man, I really want to do that, but I can't. I'm not skilled enough. I don't have this. I don't, whatever. All of those negative things, you are communicating that to yourself. And guess what you're doing? You're telling yourself you can't. And your mind, your brain, will believe exactly what you tell it. So if you tell yourself that you can't, or if you tell yourself that you can, either way, you're right. So how are you communicating with yourself? What is it that you're saying to yourself? Do you have healthy self-talk? I know I certainly didn't. For a very long time, I had it was not good. We'll put it that way. We'll put it nicely and we'll say it was not good. It was not optimal. It was not serving me in any way, shape, or form to grow and to become more of the person that I was created to be. It absolutely certainly was not. It was pretty devastating, actually. It kept me from growing in a lot of respects. And so as you're examining your self-talk, be honest. Don't beat yourself up. Be honest. Is what I'm saying to myself really true? Is it? And if they're negative things and you believe that those things are true, why? Why do you believe they're true? Someone else say it? Did you think it up all by yourself? Did you interpret someone else's communication to mean those things that you're saying to yourself? All excellent questions as we're talking about what are you communicating and what are you communicating with yourself? Listen, you're in communication with yourself 24 hours a day. Even when you're sleeping, your body is communicating. Your brain is doing all kinds of funny things when you sleep. You're processing things. You're working through issues, all of those kinds of things. You are in communication with yourself 24 hours a day. So the communication that you have with you is of utmost importance because it can determine outcomes. Plain and simple. It can determine your outcomes. What you say to yourself matters. Remember that. So as you're thinking about that, let's move on to next, the people around you, right? Because we're talking about what are you communicating to yourself, to the people around you, to the universe, okay? The people around you, families, friends, coworkers, all of these folks, strangers in the grocery store. I especially like the communication with strangers because to me, I feel like that says a lot about someone. I get more out of how people really are, their true selves, and how they communicate with strangers than I do when I watch people, how they communicate with people that they know, family, relatives, even people on social media. It's amazing how much different people can act when you are responding to people on social media versus when you meet a stranger in the grocery store, at the gas station, wherever you are doing your thing. It's very interesting to me. I like to study people and how they respond to things and how they react. And I don't so much care what you look like or where you come from. I pay a lot of attention to how you treat people, how you treat the waiter, how you treat the gas station attendant, how you treat the grocery store clerk who's checking you out. You know, that's how I gauge people. That's how I don't want to say judge so much, but indeed that's how I judge people. I judge people based on their character. It's kind of fascinating sometimes. Anyway, so as you're looking at how do you communicate with the people around you? Now, this is where really, of course, we want to talk about the words that you say. Your words are absolutely important. But when you're dealing with other people, that is where those other forms of communication really tend to show up. Your facial expressions, your body language, the way that you move, the way that your physical responses, a lot of times can say something different than the words that are coming out of your mouth. So that's one of the things that you pay attention to, or that you should pay attention to. And really, in order to make sure that your face and your body and your mouth and everything else is all lining up, be authentic and be genuine. And that way you're not, saying something pleasant, with your mouth. Meanwhile, your face looks like you can't wait to get out the door. So remember all of those things. That was a tough one for me. I really had to kind of work on some, because my face can do some things that really give away my thoughts. I have always been a very expressive person, my facial muscles and things like that. And my face can say things that I don't want people to hear. So keep that in mind as you are thinking about your communication with people around you. And remember that we don't just communicate with people with our words, but it's with all other things as well. Now, as you are, let's go back to the stranger for just a minute, because I think this is such a really good point. When you pass someone, whether you're walking down the street, whether you're in the grocery store, whether you're in, Target or some other, no matter where you are, when you pass a stranger, what do you do? Do you smile? Do you acknowledge them? Do you, even maybe say hello, depending on where you are? I know some places that's more common than others. Or do you, in effect, ignore them and just kind of walk by and not acknowledge them, not notice them, And I'm not saying that you need to stop and have a conversation with every single person in the grocery store, because goodness knows you'd never get anything done. But when you pass by people, do you acknowledge the human being that is walking, past you? Or do you simply ignore them as if they don't exist? Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that is a huge form of communication. And it tells that other person a lot about you. Again, I'm not saying that that you have to stop and chat with every single person that you come into contact with. Absolutely not. Especially right now in this situation of COVID-19 that we have going on, where it actually makes communication even more important from the standpoint of how you are positioning yourself, and what your those not so common communication factors are, like your body language and your facial expressions. Listen, when you're wearing a mask, it's really hard to tell whether or not you're smiling. But if you are smiling, you can see it up here in the eyes, right? So when you smile with your whole face. That's another way that you can tell if people are really smiling or not. If they're smiling with their whole face, or if they're just smiling with their mouth, there's a difference. So if you're, because when your body language and your mouth doesn't match up, or your words, I should say, not just your mouth, but when your body language and your words don't match up, it gets a little difficult for people to, really be on the same page with you in communication. Sometimes that can kind of signal some dishonesty, not always. Sometimes you are trying to be polite. I think about this a lot with my kids, and I've really, I've tried to make sure that I pay a lot of attention to this. I have 2 boys. So obviously that means that they're interested in some things that I'm not. We do have a lot of common interests together. I love being a boy mom, but there are some things that I simply have no interest in at all whatsoever. And usually those things come up when I'm in the middle of doing something else. Let's talk about this. No, I don't want to. But, and I've had to really work on that and say, okay, my child is talking to me. This is important to them. If I am able, and sometimes I'm not, it's hard to stop in the middle of, cooking something on a hot stove, in that case, you say, give me just a minute. But, if they're coming to you, especially children, if they're coming to you to share something with you, give them your attention. because that plants the seed for them to know that they can trust you and they can communicate with you later. I promise. I promise. Let them talk to you about the things now that are seemingly unimportant to you. And when they get older, they will be comfortable talking to you about the things that are important to you and to them. The things that have much more weight to them than whatever cool little super fighter jet trick thing, toy, my boy moms out there know exactly what I'm talking about with the whole, super cool jet trick thing, whatever that is. So remember that. Remember that the person who is coming to you, they're another human being. And they deserve the same respect and the same, they deserve to be treated with the same dignity that you want to be treated with. So give them your attention and listen to them, and then, thank them, and then go on about your business. I promise that does so much more for you than brushing them off and, making them feel like you don't have time for them. Because that's essentially what you're doing when you brush them off. So just couple of little things, a couple of little extra tidbits there. So as you are, as you're thinking about what are you communicating, we've talked about what are you communicating with yourself and your self-talk and your affirmations and how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself. What are you communicating with those around you, whether that's family, friends, strangers, whoever it is, people around you, coworkers. We'll toss coworkers into the mix too, because that's a whole nother, I'll do a whole nother segment on how you communicate in the workplace at some point. But you have that issue. And so let's talk about the third one that I mentioned earlier. So lastly, we're going to move on to what are you communicating with the universe? Now, stay with me, because what we're talking about here is really asking the question, what are you speaking into existence? Remember, your words have power. Ladies and gentlemen, words have a tremendous amount of power. So what are you speaking into existence? What are you putting out there? Because let me tell you, I've read a lot of books, a lot of self-help books, a lot of different, ways that people look at things and how you become successful and how you measure it, all kinds of things like that. I'm a big fan of the human brain, how it works and how you do things and why you do things, motivation, people who have, what their motivations are. But here's the thing, when you start speaking words out, whether you are claiming success or whether you are foreshadowing disaster, when you start speaking those words out into existence, how many of you have realized that, oh my gosh, what I said happened? How many times have you actually spoken what later turned out to be a self-fulfilling prophecy? Think about it. When you ask the question, oh my goodness, what else is going to go wrong? Do you not inevitably get an answer? I do. I had to teach myself a while back to stop asking that question. What else can go wrong? Because every single time I asked that question, man, something else went wrong. Something else went wrong. And so as you speak those words out of your mouth into the universe, okay, into the great beyond, what are you speaking out there? What kind of answer are you wanting to get back? Because you're going to get an answer back. So why not speak out words of affirmation? Speak out words of, achieving success, of attaining what it is that you're wanting to accomplish. Speak those words out that are going to give you the return back that you desire. Now, that does not mean that it's a magic potion and you say, okay, well, universe, I'd like to have $1 million, and in your prayer time, you say, okay, God, I'd like to have $1 million. Could you just go ahead and line that up for me? And then you don't do anything else about it. That's not quite how it works. If anybody figures out how to do that, you let me know and we'll get on it. Okay. What I mean by what you're speaking out into the universe and what it is that you're speaking into your own life, what you're putting out there, it's what you're going to get back. If you are speaking positivity out, if you are speaking out things about goals and objectives, things, purposeful things that you want to see happen in your life, The universe will begin to align to make those things happen for you. I promise. Doesn't happen overnight, but things will start to change and turn so that you can see opportunities, which will then lead you down that path to reach those goals. But the same thing happens if you start speaking out negative into the world, into the universe, into just out of your mouth. When you start talking about how bad things are, how difficult this is, how hard it's going to be, what a struggle everything is that you're going through, when those are the only type of words that are coming out of your mouth, that is exactly what you are attracting back into your life. You're attracting the negative, you're attracting the tragedy back into your life. And ladies and gentlemen, you can agree or disagree, but I would ask you to take a moment and think about that. Really examine that. When things have been going well in your life, what has your communication been like? Has it been positive? Has it been, upbeat? Has it been encouraging to yourself, to others around you? And then I want you to look and see when things were not going well. And maybe there was a string of things not going well. What were your words like? Did you constantly complain about what was going wrong? Did you constantly essentially look for more bad stuff to happen? Or were you trying to, this is a tough situation. What can I learn from it? How can I learn and grow from this situation? What were you looking for in it? Because our words, this is going to be like the third or fourth time I've said this during this broadcast, but our words are so incredibly powerful. And what we speak out is what we get back. So the question for today is, what are you communicating? And I invite you to examine that in 3 different areas. What are you communicating to yourself? What are you communicating to the people around you? And then lastly, what are you communicating to the universe? What are you putting out there? I have decided, and I decided this a while back, but I've decided that I'm going to put the positive out there because that's what I want back in my life. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have rough times. Listen, I have a personal situation happening in my life right now. It's not fun. It's doesn't have a clear outcome. It's full of uncertainty. Don't know what's going to happen. But instead of putting my focus in on all of the bad, all of the negative, all of the what ifs that could, I've got to keep my focus on the positive parts that come out of it. What can be done? What can I learn? How can we grow from this? What can I take away from this? Because I don't want to invite more tragedy in. I want to protect myself from that. And one of the ways I can do that is through my words and how I respond to the situations that are happening around me right now. So I will leave you with that to ask the question, what are you communicating? What am I communicating to me, to the people around me? What am I putting out there into the universe? Ask yourself those questions. And feel free to come back in here after you've had a little bit of time to reflect and drop your comments down here. Let me know. What did you get out of asking yourself those questions? What kind of responses did you find? Like I said earlier, I am a student of people. People fascinate me. And so I love to understand what kind of impact asking yourself those questions has on you, on your thought process. What did you learn from it? Did you discover something that you didn't know about yourself? I certainly did when I started asking myself those questions. I've learned a ton about myself as I've been asking those types of questions. That's right. What do you say when you talk to yourself inside and out? Exactly. When you're talking to yourself, it's so important to understand what you're saying to you and pay attention to what you're saying to you, because most of us don't. We're so conditioned in our thought process as it is. Most of us don't really pay that much attention. We don't really take the time to say, I'm probably not speaking to myself in a way that's best. I think I saw something recently that said, speak to yourself as if, you love yourself. Speak to yourself as if you were someone that you love. I think that in and of itself is just a great takeaway as we're talking about how are you communicating? What are you communicating? Are you communicating out love? Are you communicating out, kindness, generosity? Are you communicating out the positive things to the people around you and to yourself, or not? So I will leave you with that question. Down here scrolling at the bottom of the screen is my 30-minute complimentary self-discovery call. The link right here, bit.ly/CME30. And that is to get on my calendar and have that 30-minute discussion about where you are, where you want to go, and for us to have a moment to discuss what's your next best step. So if that is something you're interested in, by all means, go ahead and hop on the calendar and we can have that discussion and really start talking about, everything starts with your communication. Right now, I've got a series running called Transformation Through Communication. And honestly, that is where transformation happens. It starts with your communication. So I'd love the opportunity to talk about that and see if it's something that I can help you with. Again, the link is right down there at the bottom, bit.ly/CME30. And so until, where are we at? We're Wednesday. Of course, it's ladies' lunch break, so we're Wednesday. So I will see you guys again on Friday night for Friday Night Live. And until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week. I hope that the weather is nice and you get some chance to enjoy it. And I hope you get a time to rest a little bit too, and kind of refresh and take some of that time to examine how you're communicating with you and with those around you and with the universe. So until next time, I will, I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. And so until next time, I am Crystal Fry, a woman's best friend, teaching women to see themselves, love themselves, and transform into themselves, into the women they were created to be. Have a great afternoon.